All right, Shabbos, say good morning. All right, good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning. Should to thank our TALMUD TORAH sponsor for the month of Nissan, Saeed Sima Haken, for dedicating all of his Sherman Joshos this month to show the Hakarat Hatov to Hashem for all of his Nisim and Niflaos. May Hakadosh Baruch Hu continue to bestow his rachmanus on us, redeem all of the hostages, bring Hatzlacha to our soldiers, to Am Yisrael, to EretzYisrael, and the nishmat Yerachmiel Buck's father, Martin Buck Motle ben Chaim Leib HaKohen. Our week of learning sponsors, Paul and Kathy Pollack in memory of Paul's mother, Florette Pollack, Perel Bas Avraham. And our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Alan and Sue Myrowitz in memory of Alan's mother, Perel Bas Avraham, Zichron Livracha, Alan and Andrea Stawis in Hakaros Hatov, to Josh Malkie for hosting us in Orlando this past Pesach. So beautiful. Okay, I will say, with that, let us begin. Baruch Hashem, a lot to do today. We, of course, always dedicate our learning in the schus of our precious brothers and sisters. May Hakadosh Baruch Hu bring them home to their mishpachos, b'shalom and b'karov. And halavai, Meretz Hashem, make Klal Yisrael just hear and experience besoros, tovos, shalom, and bracha for all eternity. So with that, let us move. A lot to do today, but really great Gemara. Hopefully you are developing in your love for Ezer Neshach. So today's Daf is Samach Dal 64. We are picking up Samach Gimel Beis 63b. We left off pretty much in the middle of the page, right at the two dots. Rabba v'Rav Yosef ta'amri tarbayu. So Rabba and Rav Yosef both said the following. Hayman diyohev zuzi atara charifa. So this is actually a very interesting case. If a person, remember again, this entire time when we've been focusing on the concept of psika ala peros. Remember again, just to get our terms down, what's psika ala peros? In English, we're translating this as a future contract. So essentially what I'm doing is, I'm buying produce now, but I'm not taking delivery of it until some later time. The Gemara says such an agreement like that is fine, provided two things. Either we're not clear yet, is it both of the things? Most probably it's one of the things. What do you need? Either what? Either yeshlo, right? That ultimately again the seller has the product in hand, or number two, yatsa hashar. The price is known. So now let's go with that. Let's go with that second approach. Ultimately, again, of Yatz Hashar, which was Rav Dimi. Rav Yanai, sorry. Rav Yanai. Rav Oshia was the one who said Yeshlo, and Rav Yanai was the one who said Yatz Hashar. Those are the two primary points for you to remember right now. So Rabbi Yosef says as follows. What happens if somebody is buying what we call with Atara Charifa? Atara Charifa means it's an early sale. So this will say I'm buying produce really before the market price is set. So, bepashtos, when is market price set? So after the harvest, everybody has all of the crop and the produce is in. So then you could establish what the actual market price is. So I'm buying produce, and it's early. Rashi says over here, B'tara Charifa, it's in the second like an intermediate wide lines. Haposek ala peros at shalo yotza shar abaror, ela sha'ar habechir. So the actual market price is not yet set, but there's an early market price. Shusamach lakatzir. So this is really early on in the harvest season. So early on in the harvest season, the actual market price has not been set, only an early market price. So I'm going to buy produce. So the Gemara says, you have to show up at the threshing floor. In other words, you actually have to go ahead and show up at the threshing floor in order to affect this deal. So the Gemara says, I don't understand, Lamai. Why do I have to show up at the threshing floor? Ila mikna halokani. So we'll say, if it's about showing up at the threshing floor somehow acquires the produce from me, but that's not true. Produce is metaltalin. There are defined ways to acquire metaltalin, and showing up at the threshing floor doesn't do anything. Or we'll say, so remember again, back to our mishapara days. If it's about receiving a mishapara, so we'll say, remember again, what is mishapara? That was the case. Remember, we established that although mid'oraisa, you acquire metaltalin with money, you acquire movable property with money. But remember again, Chazal said, no, you don't acquire movable property until when? Until you do Mashiach. But however, Chazal said that if you go out and you pay for something, and you back out of that transaction, you get a mishapara. What's a mishapara? Essentially, you get a curse. You get a curse. You get a curse for not abiding and not upholding by your word. So the Gemara is saying, maybe what it's saying over here is, if I go ahead and I buy at the early rate, and then I go ahead and I don't and I back out of that, or I don't show up at the granary, I get a mishapara. Here's the problem. The Gemara says kilo mischazina mekabala mishapara. I will say, when do you get a mishapara? Has nothing to do with showing up. When do you get a mishapara? When you pay for something and you don't honor your commitment. That's when you get a mishapara. So what does that have to do with showing up? So this is actually really interesting. This is also very fascinating because it shows you a little bit how Talmudic commerce actually works. How Talmudic commerce works. In reality, the Gemara is saying like this. If you're going ahead and you're purchasing produce at the early market rate, so remember again, what's early market rate? That's before the real market rate has been established. This is very close, right after the harvest season. So if you're buying produce early on, so which means we'll say, I've paid. I only receive a mishapara when uman diyov zuzi atara charifa lebeit trei tlasa yoiv. Shabbos is very interesting. If you were buying produce early on in the season, before the market rate was actually established, it was very common to kind of put a down payment or a deposit or even pay money to a number of different merchants, a number of different farmers. Because since the market price wasn't established, you weren't exactly sure who you were going to buy from. So therefore what? So therefore, I said, become to put like a down payment by a couple of different people. Right? With the idea, what was the expectation? You were going to attract one or more of those sales before you decided ultimately who you were going to buy from. So the Gemara says, Imis chazile, samchadaiti, v'ilo armale amina dishkachos peri dishapiri mididei v'shakla. Therefore, I will say, it's only the farmer, only the granary that you actually showed up to was the one with whom you were going to cement the deal. But the other guys, when you never showed up at the appointed time, they understood that what? That you found a better deal, and we're going to be asking for your money back. So the Gemara says, this is actually interesting. So as much as normally, when you give money for metaltalin, although that doesn't affect the deal, what it does do is make you subject to a mishapara. That's what it does do. You're subject to a mishapara. The exception to that rule is when you were purchasing produce in the early stages of the market, before the market price was set. It was common to make down payments to a bunch of different merchants, right? With the understanding that you're going to pull out from a lot of those transactions, only the guy who you show up to kind of seal the deal, that's the one who you're subject to a mishapara. But all the other ones, you're entitled to ask your money back even without a mishapara. So it's like, the reason why this Gemara, so let's finish up. And we'll say the idea over here is, because when you were purchasing at the early stages of the market, the vendors or the farmers understood that these were not ironclad sales, and quite possibly you were going to go ahead and be moving or be backing out of it. So it was all about smichos tas. Only when you showed up at the threshing floor, that's when it was clear that it was cemented. The Gemara says, by the way, it doesn't even have to be showing up at the threshing floor. Even if you ran into the farmer, right, in the marketplace, and at the marketplace he said to the farmer, by the way, I want to lock down that deal. In other words, that there was a round two, you paid the money, and then round two, you said to me, you know what, I really want to cement that deal. That's also, quote unquote, the cemented deal. Now remember, whenever you're putting down money for produce, the deal is only truly cemented and irreversible when you take Mashiach, right? When you do Mashiach, you take physical possession. But at least to make you subject to a mishapara, once you say you're in, then you're subject to the mishapara. So we'll say, take away from this sugya is that we've been focusing on Yatsa Ashar, that commerce was, or I should say, that transactions were done when the market price was known. There was such a thing as something called an early sale. Early sale took place in the immediate aftermath of the harvest. So therefore, again, the marketplace value was not established, but people were doing business early. Those type of transactions are almost governed by a separate set of rules. That's the Gemara is teaching me over here, and that halacha l'maisa, even for a mishapara, I'm not subject to that until I actually physically show up. Incredible. Let's go weiter. Really interesting. So the Gemara goes weiter. Rabbi says this is a really great Gemara. Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says like this: Klala d'Ravisa. So Rabbi say one of the clouds, one of the rules of Ribbis, one of the rules of Ribbis is called agar natar le aser. Rabbi say this is it. What's Ribbis 101? Ribbis 101, right? What is interest 101? Is receiving extra reward for waiting for your money. As we'll say, what is interest? Interest is I lend you money. I lend you money. Because I'm giving you my money, what don't I have? What don't I have? My money. My use of my money. I could have had that money. I could have made money with that money. By giving you the money, I'm losing. What does interest do? Interest essentially says, since I could have used my money to make money, I'm not taking a loss, and therefore, again, I'm making money by you using my money. So the idea over here is any situation, any transaction, where at the end of the day, I am getting paid extra for waiting for my money to be repaid, that's ribbis. It would have been very helpful, by the way, if the Gemara would have just started out, right? But again, Ezu Neshech is structured. I mentioned this, I think, yesterday. Ezu Neshech is structured in this interesting way where we kind of jump into the deep end of ribbis first, and then we kind of go back to shallow waters a little bit later, which we're going to do over today and tomorrow, Mirat Hashem. But I will say, this is it. Perhaps one of the most important lines in the entire parak. What is ribbis? Agar natar le aser. Agar means reward. Natar la, for waiting for your money, is aser. That's ribbis. Take a quick look at Rashi. Agar natar, 5 lines up from the bottom. Schar hamtana, imozil gabe, mishum hamtana shemaktim lo hamos, v'amekach ein lo l'mocher achshav. So because I give you my money now, or both say, by the way, this is true, remember, you could have, as we've seen, you could have ribbis in a loan, you could have ribbis in a purchase. But either way, the idea is if I have to wait for my money, I don't get my money now. And because I have to wait for my money, you're giving me a premium for waiting for my money, that's called interest. Again, we'll talk about that. I want to come back a little bit later. I just want to get a little bit more weiter. I want to talk about that principle a little bit more. We'll come back to that. So Mar says, Amrav Nachman, Haiman do you have Zuzi Likira, the Ka'azli Daladalat. So let's say I'm buying wax. And let's say the price of wax is, you get four cakes of wax for 1 zuz. That's the price. 4 cakes of wax for 1 zuz. Hey. And we'll say, now what happens? I go over to Ruvain, right? Ruvain sells wax. And Ruvain says, if you pay me now, I will go ahead and give you, at a later date, 5 cakes of wax for a zuz. So, right, what is Ruvain saying? Right, the market price is 4 cakes of wax for a zuz. Ruvain says, give me money now, and at a later date, I'll go ahead and give you 5 cakes of wax. So the Gemara says, Isnu gabe shari. So remember again, if Ruvain has the wax, then it's permitted. Why is it permitted? I'll say again, this goes back to, we've seen this now 3 days in a row. Why is that permitted? Because it's as if I've taken possession of it already. If he has it in his possession, it's as if now I own it. That's fine. Less nu gabe, but if he doesn't have it with him, then what? Aser. Because they will say, why? What does this look like? Ribbis. Now, again, to point out, this is not biblical ribbis, right? This will only be, quote unquote, ribbis Rabbanon, but ribbis nevertheless. This is psika laperos. So when I says, okay, I got this. We've done this case ad nauseum already. I understand it. So the Gemara says, listen to this. The isle ashray b'masa. This is fascinating. So we'll say, listen to the following case. I'm going over to Ruvain to buy wax. The market price is 4 cakes of wax for a zuz. Ruvain says, pay me money now, and I'll deliver 5 cakes of wax for a zuz at a later date. So, okay, so scenario number 1, he's got the wax. No problem. If he's got the wax, that's what I was saying. I want to be clear. Remember, a merchant is always allowed to sell at a discount, right? So again, if I have wares and I want to sell, that's fine. So in other words, if we're just to frame this correctly, so if I'm going over to Ruvain says, listen, Silber, I like you a lot. The market is 4 cakes of wax for a zuz. I'm going to give you 5 cakes of wax for a zuz. And we're just doing an immediate transaction. There's not a shayla. The reason why there's a shayla is because there's a delay. That's the issue. So now suddenly what I'm doing is, I'm giving X amount, I'm giving a zuz. which would in today's market give me 4 cakes of wax, but now I'm giving it to him, and at a later date, he's going to give me 5 cakes of wax. That just looks like ribis. It looks like interest. It looks like, give me money now, and I'll give you more back later on. So again, if he has the wax with him, then it's not a problem, right? Even if I'm taking possession of it later, because again, that's yeshlo, that's fine. At a later date, it's going to look like ribis. The Gemara says, so what's the chiddush over here? Watch this. Let's say Reuven doesn't have the wax, but we'll say, but what? But Reuven has a guy. You always have to have a guy, right? Reuven has a wax guy. And Reuven's wax guy, right? Reuven has a line of credit at his wax guy. And he could walk into the wax guy and just get the wax at any time. So the Gemara says, Mazatema, Kevan de Isle Ashray Bamasa, Ke'ad Sheyavo B'ni O Ad Sha'emsa Mafteach Dami. So I would have thought that if Reuven has access to the wax right now, right? Even though he doesn't have it in his possession, but he has access to it right in this moment, it's just like a case of where a person has produce, but let's say access to the produce is temporarily blocked. Like, he's missing the key to his storeroom, right? Or his kid has the key, right? So we'll see these cases later on, where a person has the produce, but is temporarily blocked from accessing it. That's still called access. So I might have thought that if Reuven has a line of credit with the local wax wholesaler, and he could get wax at any time, then maybe that satisfies the criteria of Yeshlo, Kamash Malon it doesn't. Kamash Malon gave it in the Chasri Govaina, Kiman the lesson of Dami. The Christian Gemara says, no. Either you have it or you don't have it. So I'll say this is very important, that the criteria of Yeshlo is only satisfied when? If Yeshlo. It's not a metaphor, it's not an expression, it's literal. If you have the produce, then it works. A psik ala peros, a future forward contract. If you don't have the produce, even if you have immediate access to it, right? Even if you have a laundry, you have this, you have that. Yeshlo is Yeshlo. Incredible. So I will say, what's really exciting about this Gemara is we're slowly but surely building up our ribis knowledge. And you're going to see the day is going to come where all of the pieces kind of just like settle. They fall into place. But again, I would urge you to whatever degree possible, whether if you have a good memory, just memorize it. If you don't have a good memory, write it down. So this way you have all the facts as we're going along. And you'll see it'll all drop in just a little bit. So the Gemara goes right there. Vamra Nachman, Haiman da Ozif. This is a great case. Haiman da Ozif Pshiri Nichavre. So I'll say, watch this. I'm borrowing money from Reuven. Now, literally again, Pshiti means a relatively small amount of money. Pshiti literally means small change. I'm borrowing a small amount of money from Reuven. And I find that halacha l'maisa, there's more money than what I borrow. So I was going to borrow, let's just call it $100. And I see that there's $107. So I say, so the shaila is, in halacha, how do we look at the additional amount? So the Gemara says, so listen to this, so we'll say if it's an amount that a person would normally make a mistake about. In other words, if it's significant enough, or actually, we'll see what it means. If it's the amount that a person would make a mistake about, look at Rashi. So we'll say if it's the type of amount where it's possible that the lender, Reuven, just made a mistake. You just made a mistake. Then the halacha is I'm obligated to give it back to him. V'ilav, but if it's not the type of amount that he could have made a mistake with, then matana ba'al mohudi yoevle. It's incredible. Then we look at it as a matana. We look at it as a gift. Okay? So let's analyze this. So we'll say, what's the amount that we could attribute to a mistake? Amrav Acha Bereid Rav Yosef, top of Samachnal 64a, Be'isuraisa, Be'chumshaisa. We'll say, if he gave me more, and it's by increments of 5 or 10, really it's 10 or 5. In other words, it was common to count off money in units of 10, that was the more common, a little less common in units of 5. So we'll say, so if he lent me $100, and I got 105, right? 110, so that's a mistake. That's a mistake, because essentially what we look at is like this. Since it's normal, right? people don't count money 1, 2, 3, 4, and count from 1 to 100. Instead, what do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pile. Right? Or tens, whatever, tens or fives. So we'll say, so therefore, if essentially you got an extra increment of 5 or 10, that's indicative of counter's mistake. That's lender's mistake. He just counted an extra pile. It would appear, we'll say, less than that, a person ultimately, again, doesn't make a mistake, and that's a gift. That's a matana. Amalei Rachamei Drava, Ravashi, V'i inish takifahu to lo yav matana mai. It's interesting. So we'll say, by the way, I know what you're thinking to yourself. You're thinking, why don't you just ask Ruvain? Just ask him. Hey, Ruvain, I borrowed $100. Right, there's $107 in here. What's the story? So I'll say again. So we can answer that easily. Ruvain's not available. He's not accessible. Right? He's Medina Sayam. Right? I don't know him. We lent through a guy out through a third party. Whatever it is, you could construct whatever Metzia you want. But I don't have the ability to directly clarify with this. Okay. So what about this? So Amalei Ravachari Ravashi V'i inish takifahu to lo yav matanamai. I'll say, let's say I know Ruvain, and Ruvain is cheap. Ruvain is stingy. Ruvain is not given matanas to anyone. Right? No matanas. Therefore, we'll say, so now I know. So again, it's not an increment of 5 or 10. So therefore, I can't attribute it to lender error, but it is some additional amount. So what do I do now? So the Gemara says, my Amarle is incredible. Tilma migzal gazle ve'evlele bechashman. Wow. Now let's say, what do we choshish for? Maybe Ruvain stole from me in the past. Ruvain wants to go out and be a Baal Tshuva, because who doesn't want to be a Baal Tshuva? He wants to be a Baal Tshuva, but he feels very awkward about coming clean and confronting the theft. So instead, what does he do? He figures it's a great opportunity. He goes ahead and he's lending me money anyway. Throw in a couple of extra shekel right into the loan, and that extra amount of money is really to go ahead and pay back the stolen product, pay back the stolen item. This time, because what we learned? Remember, we had this in Bava Metzia, or actually, close over in Bava Kama, but I thought we had it in Bava Metzia also. Hagozas chavero v'ivlia. No, sorry, right? We had it in Bava Kama. We are in Bava Metzia. Hagozal es chavero v'ivlia lo bechashbon yatsa. Remember, we had this sugya, right? When you want to go ahead, let's see this, right? When you want to go ahead and pay back, not Elam Metzias. Okay, whatever, Bava Kama. Right? So I'll say, I stole something. I want to pay back. Does the victim have to be cognizant of the fact that I stole from him and am paying him back or not? So the Brisa says over here that if you steal from your friend and you mix in the stolen money, ultimately, again, you are yotze, your obligation to return stolen objects. So therefore, again, halacha l'maisa, the Gemara is like this. If I know that Ruvain is a cheap guy, and therefore the money is not a matzana, so therefore, again, the way I look at it is maybe Ruvain stole from me, and this is his way of making me whole without confronting the theft directly. He's just mixing in the stolen money, or I should say he's returning the stolen money. The Gemara says, okay, let's say, what happens if I've never done business with Ruvain in my life? I never met Ruvain before in my life, which means that what? It is not possible that he stole from me. Right? Not possible. So if he's cheap and therefore it's not a matana, or ultimately, again, I've never met him before in my life and therefore it's impossible that he's returning any type of stolen money to you. So what do I do with the extra money? The Gemara says, listen to this. Amarle dilma inish achrina gazle va'amarle ki yazif ploni pshita minach ivlale bechashman. So he'll say, so maybe what happened? Someone who did steal from me heard that Ruvain ultimately, again, was lending me money. So the guy who did steal from me, we'll call him Shimon, goes over to her and says, Ruvain, can you do me a favor? Here's a couple of extra dollars. Put that into the pot of the loan money, and this way, again, I'm repaying silver. So someone else went ahead and heard, again, about this transaction, and is it paying their stolen debt or their stolen amount from... Say it again. If I don't know Ruvain, I have no past history with Ruvain, but there's extra money, and the amount of money can't be attributed to lending error. So we say that maybe a person who did steal from me, Shimon, heard that Ruvain was lending me money, gave Ruvain some extra money to mix into the loan, and that way that's Shimon's way of repaying me from what he stole from me. Okay, so the Gemara says, Amrav Kana Havia Sivna B'Shili Pirkei D'Rav. So I'll say, so again, so that this is just now a separate case. So I'll say, so now halacha l'maisa, you borrow money, there's some extra money mixed in. You can't ask, for whatever the reason, you can't ask the purchaser. Sorry. Let's get a little more sleep. You have to get a little more sleep. Okay, you can't ask the lender about what is going on over here. So therefore, I will say, so what do you do with it? So if it's an incremental amount that could be attributed to lending error, so you give it back. If it's less than that, or more than that for that matter, then halacha l'maisa, that's a gift. That's a gift. And again, and if it's not a gift, it could be a stolen amount that's being returned. And if it's not a stolen amount from the lender, it could be a stolen amount that was given to the lender by another person to mix into the loan amount. Beautiful. Amar Rav Kana. So Rav Kana said, I came in at the end of Shir. So what's that? Some things never change. Some things never change. I came in at the end of Shir. Rashi says over here, B'shili Perikin, Kishasiyem Lidrosh Basi, V'lo Shamati Tchilas Tevarav. I came at the end of Shir, and therefore I didn't hear what Rav was saying in the beginning. Now watch this. So therefore again, Rav Kana says, V'shamis Teka'amri Kari Kari. All I heard him saying was gourd. I just heard him repeating the word gourd all the time. And obviously I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. Basar de Kamrav. So we'll say after Rav got off from Shir, Amrile, my kari to Kamrav. So we'll say Rav Kahana had enough, right? He understood. When you walk in late to Shir, you certainly don't ask questions. Right? So what did he do? He finished, he waited until Shir finished. So Rav got up, and then Rav Kahana began to inquire, what was Rav talking about with all the gourds? Kari. So this is incredible. So Amrli. So they said to me as follows. Hachi Kamarav. This is what Rav said. Hai man diyav zuzi leginoi akrai. So we'll say, this is fascinating. I go over to a garden, to a farmer, and I am buying gourds. V'ka'az li asara kari b'nei zarsa. So we'll say the way the market is set up is like this. You could buy 10 small gourds, right, for a zuz. Now this is very important. So small gourds are the size of our zarsa, which Rashi says a half an amma. So here's the market price. You could buy 10 small gourds, small gourd being a half an amma each, at a price of 1 zuz. 10 small gourds for a zuz. Okay. Va'amarle. And I will say, so what happened? So va'amarle, yahivna lecha b'nei gamida. So I go into the gardener, right, to the farmer, and the farmer makes me the following offer. The farmer says, go ahead and pay me 1 zuz now, and I will give you 10 full-size gourds at a later time. Okay, so we'll say this is a psika la peros, right? This is a forward future contract, right? So normally again, market 1 zuz for 10 small gourds, half an amma. Pay, right? So Ruvain says, give me a zuz now, and I'll give you at a later date 10 large gourds. So we'll say, what's the halacha? We know this. So we know this call. Isnu shari, lesnu aser. So again, if Ruvain has the gourds, then this is permitted. If he doesn't have the gourds, then it's prohibited. So the Gemara says, okay, so pshita. So we've seen this so many times. So what would you have thought? This is fascinating. Keva dimamela karabu shapir dami. Rabbi say this case is different. Watch this. I would have thought this case is permitted. Why? See, Rabbi say because at the end of the day, Rabbi say, what does Ruvain currently have in his possession? What does he have in his possession? Small gourds. And Rabbi say, what generally happens with small gourds? Zakatan gadol yiyah. Right? So again, right, what happens with small gourds is in EretzYisrael they become large gourds. I would have thought like this. Even if Ruvain doesn't have in his possession large gourds right now, he has small gourds. Small gourds become large gourds. So maybe that satisfies the criteria of Yeshlo. Kamash Malan, no. So what's the Kamash Malan? No. That in other words, the way it works is like this. He's got to have the commodity. The commodity. What is the commodity? Large gourds. And it's not enough for him to have small gourds that Emir Hashem one day are going to grow into large gourds. This is really a very interesting case. So the Gemara says, Kiman. So in accordance with whose opinion? It says, Kiha Tana. Disanya, Haholech, suppose listen to this case. Haholech lachlov es izav, veligzos es rechelev, velirdos es kavarasa. Suppose you watch this. I am going on my way to milk my goats, to go ahead and shear my sheep, or to go ahead and take, I don't know what the good lirdos. Lirdos means actually to crush my honeycombs. Which means to go ahead. Lirdos actually means to knead, right? But I'm going to take the honey from my honeycombs. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to do this. So my friend sees me going to do all this stuff. Va'amarlo, Mashi Ize Cholvos Machar Lecha. Masha Rechili goes izos Machar Lecha. Masha Kavarasi Loda Machar Lecha. So I'll say, I see Ruvain. I say, Ruvain, here's the deal. I'm willing to sell you whatever milk I get from my animals, whatever wool, and whatever honey. So I'll say, and what happens? And we set a price. The halacha is machar. It works. Now both say it's mutter. Now look at Rashi. Why is it mutter? Right, almost right across in Rashi. Shari kibel alav hefsid uschar. Hilchach afilu yimatzi yosem mishave adamim ein kan agar natar leiti have a batzim idamim nami have a shakar. Now both say, now, interestingly enough, what's missing in this case? An amount. I'm not selling it out. Instead, what am I telling him? Whatever milk I get, whatever wool I get, whatever honey I get, but you're going to give me $50. Now we agree on it. So I'll say, so again, it doesn't exactly seem like the best type of transaction to go ahead and set up from Ruvain, the purchaser's perspective, but it works. And there's no ribis, right? Why is there no ribis? Truth is, Ruvain has no idea what he's getting for his $50. Maybe he's getting a lot, maybe he's getting a little, and therefore, it's just a transaction, totally mutter. Avalim Amrlo, Mashi Izi Choleves Kach Vekach Machar Lecha. But if I say to him, I'm going to milk my goat, right? And whatever, I get 2 gallons of milk, right? Or Masherechili goes as those kach vekach, or 10 pounds of wool, right? Or Mashekarasi wrote kach vekach machar lecha aser. Ultimately, we'll say this is going to be aser. Why? We'll say, why is this aser? Because we'll say, here's the problem. If I am selling a commodity, and we are locking in the price for a particular amount of the commodity to be delivered at a future date, then we'll say, then what is that? That is a future forward contract, psika ala peros, and any type of psika ala peros. So in order for you to do that, what do you need? You need yeshlo. You have to have the commodity in hand. The problem over here is I don't have the commodity in hand. Now, granted, I'm going to milk the goat now. I'm going to shear the sheep now. I'm going to get the honey now. But if we lock in the price for a particular amount of the commodity, that's psika la peros, and it only works if yeshlo. Now, both sides. Now, interestingly enough, that's a different kind of case because I'm on my, now, technically speaking, do I have these commodities? Do I have them? Technically, I do. Because I own the goat that is going to produce the milk. I own the sheep that is going to produce the wool. I own the bees that are going to produce the honey. So one could make the argument that technically, I own it, but I don't have it in its deliverable form. Therefore, again, the Gemara says, "V'afagav demamila karabu kevan delisnu ba'ishaita aser." Even though, again, I'm actually going to have these items, and I own the sheep. I own the goat. I own the bees. But since I don't have actual physical possession of the amount of that commodity in my hands right now, it's as if I don't have it. So I say, so what do you see from here? You see from here that halacha l'maisa, the criteria of yeshlo is not satisfied by having even immediate future access or potential access. Yeshlo means what? You have it now. So whether you're the wax merchant who has a line of credit with the wax wholesaler, or you own the animals that are going to produce the milk, the wool, and the honey, yeshlo means you actually have the commodity in your hand. Igedarmi, alternate version of this. Igedarmi, Amarava, Kevan Demamela Karabu, Shapir Dami. Shabbos saying the gourd case, so similarly in the gourd. So now there's an alternate version. in this alternate version, I will say, selling, right? If I go over to Reuven, and Reuven is willing to sell me 10 large gourds for a zuz. If I pay him now, he'll give me a future contract on 10 large gourds. So I will say, as long as Reuven has the small gourd in his possession, that satisfies the criteria of Yeshlo, because the small gourds will become the large gourds. This is an alternate version of what we said before. So the Gemara says, Shapir Dami, V'ayva Tanya Kach V'Kach Aser. I, Rabbi said, but the Gemara then brings the case, the Braisa, of the wool, the milk, and the honey as a kasha. Hasam lav minei karabu. The shaklile lahaiva asyachrina beduchte. Hacha minei karabi. The shaklile lahai la asyachrina beduchte. So we'll say, in this alternate version, the Gemara wants to make a distinction between the gourd case and the other cases. So Rabbi say, in this version, the gourd case does satisfy the criteria of yeshlo. This is very interesting. So everyone will say, watch this. I go over to Reuven, right? Normally the halach is, right, what's the gourd market? The gourd market is 10 small gourds for a zuz. I go over to Reuven, and Reuven offers me the deal. Give me a zuz now, and I'll give you 10 large gourds. Give you 10 large gourds at a future date. The Gemara wants to suggest that works, as long as Reuven has the 10 small gourds right now. Why? Because we'll say 10 small gourds will become what? 10 large gourds. That satisfies the criteria of yeshlo. The Gemara brings the kasha from the case of the milk, the wool, and the honey. Those cases are different. Why I will say, because literally in those cases you have nothing in your hand. You have nothing in your hand. In the case of the gourd, the very gourd that is going to become the large gourd, you have it in your hand. It's not large yet. It's true. But you have the commodity there, and the commodity ultimately, again, is going to become the large gourd. And I will say, that seems to be, by the way, how the Gemara ultimately ends off. That the case of the gourds actually satisfies the criteria of Yeshlo, even though now they're small. In Eretz Hashem, they will become big, and therefore you satisfy the criteria. As opposed to the case of the milk, the wool, and the honey, even though you own the animal, you don't have the commodity in hand, and therefore it does not satisfy the criteria of Yeshlo. Incredible. Abaye says as follows, Sharei le'inish, le'meimar le'lechavre, helech arba zuzi achavisa dechamra. These are all such great cases. So Abaye says like this, a person can say to his fellow, so we'll say, right, I go to buy wine from Reuven. And Reuven gives me the following terms, or I give Reuven the following terms. I'm paying you 4 zuz for this barrel of wine. Right? I'm going to take delivery of it later on. So if the wine spoils, you're responsible. Spoilage is on you. But if the wine appreciates or depreciates, I'll own that. So we'll say, again, I'm taking on depreciation or appreciation, but spoilage, Reuven has responsibility for. So we'll say that's Abaye. And Abaye says, I'm a leader of Shavri, Abaye. Rav Shavri says to Abaye, we'll say, I'm a base. Hi, Karov l'schar v'rachok lehefsidu. Okay, so we'll say, we're getting like another this idea over here. So we'll say, there is another case, what we call Karov l'schar v'rachok lehefsidu, which means, and we're going to see this more in depth, but this is a transaction that is structured in a way where there's the possibility of loss, but the possibility of loss is minimal. There's a greater probability of benefit. So I will say, a transaction that is karov l'schar v'rachok lahefsid. So probability is that you're going to benefit. A remote possibility that you're going to lose. Saloch l'maisa, that is considered to be a ribis transaction. Ribis transaction. Look at Rashi. So Rashi says, karov l'schar, because remember again, the possibility that you will benefit over here, that's if the wine appreciates. Rachok lahefsid is if it spoils, because even if it spoils, l'maisa, again in this case, it's on Reuven. Lo mekabel alei v'tanya b'pirkin karov l'schar v'rachol lehefsid rasha the shakel ribis techevon de'eno mekabel alav achrayis hamekach nimtza she'in zem mecher u'ma'os halvos ein etzlo u'krivas haschar machmas shebesu. Watch this. So I'll say, if you buy something, and essentially the major responsibility is upon the seller. Upon the seller, and I, as the purchaser, take on very limited liability. Halacha doesn't look at that as a sale. Rather, what does halacha look at that as? That's a loan. And I will say, therefore, again, this is an interest-bearing loan. So when I go over to Reuven and say, Reuven, here's how much did I pay? 4 zuz. Here's 4 zuz for this barrel of wine. I'm going to take possession of it later. Here's the deal. If it spoils, you're responsible, right? If it appreciates or depreciates, I'm responsible, right? It's mine, and I'll take possession of this later on. So Abaye says it's mutter. Rav Sharvia says no way. I will say that's called karov l'schar v'rachok lahafsid. There is a heightened probability of schar, of getting more, and a remote possibility ultimately again of loss. A circumstance like that is not called a sale. That's called a loan. So it's looked at as if I am loaning Ruvain money. The loan money has been converted into a barrel of wine, and Ruvain bears all of the risk, because if the wine spoils, ultimately he is responsible. That's a ribis transaction. We'll see this in greater depth later on. Amalei for Shabbai responds, no. Kevan the Mekabel Ale, Kevan the Mekabel Zula, Karov Lezel. Not true. Even though Ruvain takes upon himself the responsibility of spoilage, but I have the responsibility of what? Of depreciation. So we'll say, so because halacha l'maisa, I am responsible both for appreciation, which is not a responsibility, but I bear appreciation and depreciation. That is called karov l'schar and karov l'hefsid, and therefore it will be mutter. And I will say that indeed. Okay, so whatever, we'll see the halacha l'maisa on this, but actually we pass like Abaye that such a transaction is going to be mutter and doesn't have the karov l'schar rachok l'hefsid. So we'll say, so just another thing to kind of put down in your Rivis notebook, another new transaction, what we call karov l'schar, a transaction that it has a probability of yielding benefit and only a remote possibility of loss. That is a ribis transaction, and ultimately again will be usher. How to structure that, how that actually looks, we're going to see. Rashi already points out it's on Daf Ayin, page 70. So another couple of days, we'll get to that. Good. Let's go to the Mishnah. Hamalves Chavero. So we'll say, now, as I mentioned before, now it's interesting. We come back to the more classic cases of ribis. Hamalves Chavero. So we'll say I lend Ruvain money. Now Ruvain owes me money. Lo Yodar Bechatzero Chinam. So we'll say I can't live in Ruvain's property rent-free. Nor can I rent from him below market, because this is interest. So we'll say very pashat case. I lend Ruvain money. Ruvain has a vacation house. I can't go there for free, right? Or it doesn't have a vacation house, any house. I can't go there for free, right? Nor can I rent it below market. Why? Why not? Because also this is ribis. Now, what's the ribis over here? I am getting an additional benefit from Ruvain because I lent him money. So what the Mishnah is introducing me to is, ribis doesn't have to look like you lend someone money, get $100, get 110 back, right? Ribis could be, I lent you money, and because I lent you money, you're doing me favors. So the loan has given me access to additional favors. So living in Ruvain's house, rent-free, right, or below market is a favor attributed to the loan. That's called ribis. So anytime you get something extra for your money, more than just payment of the principal, whether it's in the form of additional money or it's in the form of favors, that's called ribis. So Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Yumi, Amar Rav Nachman, Afa Pisha Amru, Hadar Bechatz Chaver Shlomi Daito, She'eno Tzarech Lalos L'Schar. So listen to this. Rav Nachman, Rav Yosef said, Rav Yosef and Rav Nachman, even though normally I both say, we've seen this, we saw this also back in our Bava Kama days. They will say, if let's say Reuven has a property that no one's living in, right? It's vacant, and I live there, I am not obligated to pay him rent, right? Why? We'll say, remember again this case, this is zenene v'zelo chaser, because I'm benefiting, and Reuven's not, there's no detriment to Reuven, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not a rental property anyway. However, he'll vo v'dar b'chaser tzarech lahalos lo schar. I will say, but alocha l'maisa, if I lend Reuven money, and now he has a property, I can't live there, even if it's vacant. Why? I have to pay him rent. I have to pay him rent in that case. Why? Because halacha l'maisa again, I lent him money, and therefore again, living in his property rent-free, even though it's a vacant property, is still considered a ribis benefit. Incredible. So makamashlan. So we'll say, what's the chiddush over here? In other words, what is Rav Nachman adding? We just saw this in the Mishnah. Tanina, hamaves chaver lo yadi bechatzir achinam. We'll say, Mishnah said it. If I lend Reuven money, I can't live in his property rent-free. Nor can I go ahead and even pay under market value for rent, because that's ribis. I'll tell you why. The governor, I would have thought maybe the Mishnah is talking about the following situation. Maybe the Mishnah is talking about Reuven normally rents this property, and I am a guy who needs a place to live. So it's two things going on over here. Number one, the Mishnah is talking about a case of Reuven normally rents this property, and I am a renter as well. And therefore, I'm going to say, in that case, so again, I am getting a direct benefit, because Reuven would normally go ahead and rent out this property, and I need a place to live. That's where the Mishnah says, since I lent Reuven money, I must pay him rent. But maybe I will say in a case where what? Maybe in a case where halacha l'maisa, Reuven doesn't normally rent this property, and Baruch Hashem, I have a place to live. I don't need this property. Maybe it's permitted for me to live there rent-free or undervalue, even if what? Even if halacha l'maisa, I lent Reuven money, kamash malan. So I will say, kamash malan, what the Mishnah is going to teach me is the following halacha, which is that what? If I lend Reuven money, I will say, I cannot live in Reuven's property rent-free, or for that matter, even get away with paying him under market rent. It doesn't make a difference. Reuven does rent a property, Reuven doesn't rent a property. I need a place to live, I don't need a place to live. It makes absolutely no difference. The halacha is, if I've lent him money, I cannot get any additional benefit from Reuven, because if I do, it constitutes ribis. And it makes no difference about the status of the property or about, again, what my own, living circumstances are. Halacha l'maisa, you borrowed money I lent money to Reuven. I can't go ahead and live in his property rent-free or for under market value. So we'll say, I just want to pause here for just a second. There's another Ikid Amri that we'll go back to in just a moment. Let's say, beforehand, I just don't want to miss the opportunity today in Rav Nachman, because otherwise tomorrow it's Avri Yom Batul Kabbalah. New daf, new day. Yesterday's daf becomes another something we'll see in 7.5 years. Let's say, it struck me very much that Rav Nachman, in case I'm just pausing here for just a second, Rav Nachman said on Samach, it's actually really part of yesterday's daf, Rav Nachman said, Klala de Rabisa, right? The klal of Ribis is Agar Natrale Aser. Agar Natrale Aser. That literally, again, if you lend, literal translation, you lend money, right? Agar, I lend money, Natrala, and I wait for the money, and as a result, I get more money, I get some type of benefit, Aser. So I'll say, to me, those words so resonated with such a profound life yisod. Maybe you could break it up like this. Klala. Sometimes the rule in life that people operate by is the following. Ribisa. Now, ribis means something additional, like rabba. Ribis, people think that success. Where does success come from in life? Agar natale. That there is reward in waiting. So let's say, sometimes people think that like if they take their time, right? An opportunity comes about, don't jump on it, see what else is out there. Or you know what? Maybe they don't be in such a rush for everything. Take your time. Agar natala. There is reward in waiting. There is reward in patience. There is reward in procrastination. There is reward in living life without urgency. And people take a lackadaisical, relaxed, laid-back approach to life. And people think that this is the way to live. Aser. It is mamish aser to live that way. So klala, people think the rule in life is Rabisa, success comes agar natale, from taking it easy. From just being relaxed. Let's say a mindset like that, fundamentally aser. Life is not about being relaxed. And life is not about taking it easy. And life is not about slowing down. Obviously, to be clear, everybody has to relax at some point. Everybody has to take it easy. And I will say, but some people make a lifestyle of it, right? And some people make a habit of it. So klala, if you think the rule in life is that rabisa, that success comes from agar natala, from taking your time with things, such a mindset fundamentally asr. And I will say that is one of the greatest yisodos of sfira. What is sfira day? Sfira forces us to measure days. Sfira forces us to measure days. So I will say, you know what sfira does? Today is the 9th day of the Omer. And I will say, it is only going to be the 9th day of the Omer for one day. For one day. That's it. So if you didn't get done what you wanted to accomplish on the 9th day of the Omer, you're done. You're done. You can't get it back. I will say, imagine, by the way, if we marked every day of life like this. Today is, I don't know what number today is. Today is the 10,000th day of my life. Right? The math is obvious. Imagine I'll say every single day I marked the X, today is the X numbered day of my life. Imagine for a moment what life would look like. See, the difference is, because we look at time, it's just like a continuum. So day flows into days and time flows into time. And we think, agar natar, like, don't worry about it. Take your time, relax. Whatever you don't get done today, you'll get done tomorrow. And there's a fundamental lack of urgency in the way that we live. So the Gemara says, agar natale, asr. Taking your time, relaxing, being laid back, again, as a lifestyle, as an approach, asr. Fundamentally asr. Sira teaches us there's only 1/9 day of the Omer. That's it. There's only one day. Make sure you maximize it to the best of your ability. I was going to stop over for today. Just wanted to get that in Metzia before we moved on. We'll continue Eretz Hashem with the rent case in Eretz Hashem tomorrow. Shkoyach, everyone.